The station was bigger than anything humanity had ever built. Orbital Prime floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure that housed the Galactic Council. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its ports. Some looked like crystals, others like living creatures, and some defied any description that made sense to human eyes. Ambassador Choi Hyun-sik stood in the waiting chamber, adjusting his formal suit for the third time. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. Behind him, Captain Lee Tae-ho stood in his military uniform, silent and observant. The captain was a tall man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He had commanded Earth's first deep space battleship, the Indomitable, for 2 years now. "They will laugh at us," Choi said quietly. "I have read the reports. They think we are children playing with toys." Lee Tae-ho nodded slowly. "Let them laugh. Words are just noise. What matters is what we do when the time comes." The doors opened with a sound like singing wind. The council chamber was enormous. Rows of seats rose in a circle, each occupied by creatures that humanity had only dreamed about in stories. Some had scales, others had fur or skin that glowed with inner light. At the center of the highest row sat High Chancellor Vorn of the Vakrian Empire. The Vakrians looked almost human, but their skin was a pale blue and their eyes were completely black. They had ruled the galactic military for 3,000 years. Every species in the chamber knew their power and respected it or feared it. Choi walked to the center of the chamber. A platform rose beneath his feet, lifting him so all could see. He cleared his throat and began to speak. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, I come representing Earth and humanity. We have reached for the stars and found we are not alone. We come in peace, seeking friendship and a place among you." A sound rippled through the chamber. It took Choi a moment to realize it was laughter. Not cruel laughter, but the kind adults make when a child says something innocent and foolish. High Chancellor Vorn raised one hand, and the chamber fell silent. His voice was deep and smooth like oil flowing over stone. "We welcome Earth to the greater community. Your species has achieved faster than light travel. This is commendable. But membership in this council requires more than the ability to move between stars. It requires the strength to protect oneself and contribute to galactic security." "We understand," Choi said. "We have brought our finest warship to demonstrate our capabilities." More laughter. Vorn's black eyes gleamed with something that might have been amusement. "Yes, we have seen your vessel. The Indomitable, you call it?" He gestured to a holographic display that appeared in the air. The image showed Earth's battleship floating in space. Next to it, for comparison, was a Vakrian patrol craft. The Indomitable was huge, a massive block of metal and armor bristling with weapons. But next to the sleek, elegant Vakrian ship, it looked like a brick floating next to a knife. "Tell us, Captain," Vorn said, looking directly at Lee Tae-ho. "What propulsion system does your warship use?" Lee Tae-ho stepped forward, his face calm. "Chemical rockets for conventional thrust, nuclear thermal engines for longer burns, and a prototype fusion drive for sustained acceleration." The chamber erupted in sounds. Some aliens whistled, others made clicking noises. A delegate from the Mexani Consortium, a creature that looked like it was made of liquid metal, spoke up. "Chemical propulsion? That is technology our ancestors abandoned 7,000 years ago." Vorn raised his hand again. "And your weapons, Captain?" "Railguns firing solid metal projectiles. Missile systems with chemical and nuclear warheads. Laser point defense systems." This time the laughter was louder. A delegate from a species covered in crystalline growths called out, "Kinetic weapons? Explosive devices? Do you also throw rocks at your enemies?" Lee Tae-ho's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Choi felt his face burn with embarrassment. They had known this would be difficult, but the reality was worse than he had imagined. Vorn stood, and the chamber fell silent instantly. "I do not wish to mock Earth or its people. You have achieved much with limited knowledge, but you must understand, the galaxy is dangerous. There are threats that require true military strength to face." He paused, then smiled. It was not a kind smile. Perhaps a demonstration would be educational. "Captain Lee Tae-ho, I invite you to participate in a training exercise with one of our patrol crafts. Nothing serious, just a friendly test. You're indomitable against our swift Talon. It will help the Council understand your capabilities." The trap was obvious. They wanted to humiliate Earth in front of the entire galactic community. Choi wanted to refuse, to find some diplomatic way out. But Lee Tae-ho stepped forward. "We accept." Vorn's smile widened. Excellent. The exercise will take place in 1 week at the Aldebaran training grounds. All council members are invited to observe. He looked around the chamber. I think it will be entertaining. As they left the chamber, Choi grabbed Lee Taeho's arm. Why did you accept? They will destroy us. The captain looked at him with those sharp eyes. Because refusing would have been worse. If we run from this challenge, we will never be respected. We will be pets, not partners, but we cannot win. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Lee Taeho walked toward the docking port where their shuttle waited. Technology is not everything, Ambassador. I learned that studying military history. Earth's history is full of battles where the side with better weapons lost to the side with better tactics, where the primitive defeated the advanced because they were willing to do what their enemy thought was impossible. This is space combat, not ancient history, Choi said. War is war, Lee Taeho replied. The tools change, but the principles remain the same. They think we are primitive. They think our weapons are toys. They think we will fight the way they fight, follow the rules they follow. He stopped and turned to face the ambassador. They are wrong. We have 1 week to prepare, 1 week to show them that humanity did not climb to the top of Earth's food chain by giving up when things looked impossible. As their shuttle departed orbital prime, Choi looked back at the massive station. Somewhere in there, the alien races were laughing at humanity, certain of their superiority. He wondered if Lee Taeho's confidence was justified, or if they were about to become the galaxy's greatest joke. On board the Indomitable, Commander Park Ji-won was already gathering the senior staff. Lieutenant Kang Bo-ra was running combat simulations. Engineer Kim Sang-ho was in the engine room, making calculations that would have made any safety inspector on Earth very nervous. They had 1 week to prepare for the impossible. 1 week to prove that Earth deserved its place among the stars. 1 week to turn mockery into respect or die trying. The countdown had begun. The training grounds of the Aldebaran sector were empty except for 2 ships and the observation platforms floating at a safe distance. The Indomitable hung in the darkness, its gray hull scarred from years of testing and training missions. Every dent and scrape told a story of human determination to reach the stars. A few thousand kilometers away, the swift Talon gleamed like a jewel. It was 1/3 the size of the human battleship, but it moved with a grace that made the Indomitable look clumsy. Energy shields shimmered around its hull, and weapon ports glowed with barely contained power. On the observation platforms, representatives from dozens of alien species gathered to watch. Some had brought refreshments. Others were taking bets on how long the human ship would last. The general consensus was 3 minutes, maybe 4 if the humans were lucky. Commander Zax of the Swift Talon sat in his command chair, barely paying attention to his displays. This was not a battle. It was pest control. He had fought in 17 real conflicts and destroyed 43 enemy vessels. This crude human ship would be number 44. Open a channel to the human vessel, he ordered. Let us make this quick. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Lee Taeho listened to the Vakrian commander's voice through the communication system. Human captain, I will make this simple for you. When the Arbiter gives the signal, you may fire first. I will give you that advantage. After you have exhausted your primitive weapons, I will disable your ship with minimal damage. You will surrender and this will be over. No one needs to die today. Around the bridge, the crew exchanged glances. Lieutenant Kang Bo-ra's hands tightened on her control panel. Commander Park Ji-won's face was unreadable. Only Captain Lee Taeho seemed calm. Commander Zax, Lee Taeho replied. Thank you for your consideration. We accept your terms. The communication cut off. Zax leaned back in his chair, satisfied. At least the humans knew their place. On the Indomitable, Lee Taeho turned to his crew. Status report. Engineer Kim Sang-ho's voice came through the internal communication system. All systems modified and ready, Captain. I have to warn you again. We are running the reactor at 130% capacity. The safety systems are screaming at me. Ignore them, Lee Taeho said. Commander Park, are we in position? Park Ji-won studied her tactical display. Yes, sir. The Swift Talon is exactly where we need them. Their shields are active, but they are in standard patrol configuration. They are not expecting a real fight. Lieutenant Kang, Lee Taeho said. Weapons status. Kang Bo-ra looked up from her station. For a young officer, she had proven herself brilliant with weapon systems. She had spent the entire week studying every piece of footage they had of Vacrian combat tactics, railguns loaded and ready, missile tubes loaded with our special packages, point defense lasers online. Targeting computers are running the new algorithms. We are as ready as we will ever be, sir. Lee Tae-ho nodded. Good, remember everyone. They think we are primitive. They think we will fight like they fight, stand still and trade shots until someone's shields fail. They have fought the same way for 3,000 years because it has always worked. But we are not like their enemies. We learned to fight on a world where everything wanted to kill us. We learned to adapt or die. He paused, looking at each of his crew members. Today, we show them what humans can do. The Arbiter's voice came over all channels. The combat exercise will begin in 60 seconds. Both vessels are authorized to use all non-lethal force. The engagement ends when one ship surrenders or is disabled. May the demonstration be educational. Lee Tae-ho sat in his command chair. Commander Park, begin evasive pattern Delta 7. Sir? Park Ji-won looked confused. Delta 7 is a retreat pattern. Exactly, the signal came. The exercise began. The Swift Talon opened fire immediately. Lances of blue energy crossed the space between the ships in an instant. They struck the Indomitable's forward armor with devastating force. Metal vaporized. Armor plates glowed red-hot. On the observation platforms, the aliens nodded knowingly. The human ship was absorbing damage, but it would not last long. But inside the Indomitable, the crew was calm. The shots had hit exactly where Lee Tae-ho had predicted. The forward armor was triple thick in those sections, designed to take punishment. The internal systems were undamaged. Return fire, Lee Tae-ho ordered. The railgun spoke. Solid metal slugs, each weighing several tons, launched from the Indomitable's cannons. They crossed the distance in seconds, moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The Swift Talon's shields caught them easily. The kinetic energy dispersed across the shield's surface, harmless. Zax laughed. Is that the best you can do, human? He fired again. More energy lances struck the Indomitable. This time they hit the port side. More armor vaporized. Alarms began to sound on the human bridge. Damage report, Lee Tae-ho said calmly. Port armor compromised in sections 4 and 5. A crew member reported. Internal structure is holding. No critical systems damaged. Good, Lieutenant Kang, fire again. Same target points. More railgun rounds launched. Again, the shields caught them. But Kang Bora was not trying to penetrate the shields. She was measuring them. Every shot gave her computers more data about how the shields worked, their refresh rate, their energy distribution patterns. The Swift Talon moved closer, confident. Zax wanted to end this quickly. He charged his main cannon, a weapon that could punch through the armor of any ship in the galaxy. This is your last chance to surrender, human, he broadcast. Lee Tae-ho did not respond. He was watching his displays, counting seconds. The Swift Talon was now less than 500 kilometers away. In space combat, that was almost point-blank range. Now, Commander Park, he said quietly. Park Ji-won's fingers flew across her controls. The Indomitable's maneuvering thrusters fired in a pattern that should have been impossible for a ship that size. At the same time, engineer Kim Sang-ho released the power he had been storing in the reactor. The Indomitable accelerated like it had been shot from a cannon. Every human on board felt the crushing force of acceleration. Safety systems wailed warnings. Metal groaned under stress, but they moved. Fast. The Swift Talon's sensors shrieked warnings, but Zax could not react in time. The massive human battleship closed the distance in seconds. They were now less than 50 kilometers apart. All weapons fire, Lee Tae-ho commanded. Everything happened at once. The railguns fired, but this time at a different angle. Lieutenant Kang Bora had found a weakness in the shield's rotation pattern. For a fraction of a second, there was a gap. The tungsten penetrator rounds, moving at impossible speeds, slipped through that gap. They struck the Swift Talon's hull and punched straight through the elegant armor like it was paper. Atmosphere vented from 3 different points on the Vacrian ship. At the same moment, the Indomitable launched every missile it had. Not at the Swift Talon directly, but around it. The missiles exploded in a carefully calculated pattern, releasing clouds of metal fragments and electromagnetic interference. The Swift Talon's sophisticated sensors went blind. Their point defense systems, designed to track energy weapons, did not know how to deal with clouds of metal debris moving in random patterns. Jax stared at his displays in shock. His ship had been hurt. Worse, he could not see. His sensors showed nothing but static and interference. "Activate quantum drive," he shouted. "Get us out of here." But the quantum drive needed 30 seconds to charge. 30 seconds that he did not have. The Indomitable fired again. This time the target was the Swift Talon's engine section. More railgun rounds struck home. The elegant Vacrian ship shuddered as its propulsion systems took damage. On the observation platforms, the laughter had stopped. The aliens watched in silence as the primitive human ship dismantled one of the Vacrian Empire's finest vessels. Jax made his decision. "We surrender." "Human vessel, cease fire." "We surrender." The shooting stopped. The clouds of debris slowly dispersed. The Indomitable hung in space, its armor scorched and torn but still operational. The Swift Talon drifted, wounded and humiliated. The silence from the observation platforms was deafening. Then slowly, communication channels began to light up. Every government representative present was calling their homeworld with the same message. The humans were dangerous. The medical bay of Orbital Prime was full of Vacrian crew members from the Swift Talon. None had serious injuries, but all of them looked shaken. They had believed themselves invincible, and in 3 minutes, that belief had been shattered by a ship made of primitive metals and outdated technology. Commander Zack sat alone in a private room, staring at the wall. His career was over. That much was certain. A Vacrian commander had surrendered to an inferior force. It did not matter that the force had proven not to be inferior. What mattered was the shame. High Chancellor Vorn entered the room without knocking. Jack stood immediately, but Vorn waved him back down. "Tell me what happened," Vorn said. His voice was cold. Jax explained everything. The human ship taking damage deliberately, the unexpected acceleration, the weapons that did not make sense, the missiles that were not meant to destroy but to blind. "They fought like no one I have ever faced," Zack said. "Every rule of proper combat, every doctrine we teach, they ignored all of it. They turned their ship into a battering ram. They used weapons so primitive our shields were not designed to stop them. They created chaos and used it as a weapon." Vorn listened in silence. When Zax finished, the High Chancellor stood and walked to the window. Outside, the Indomitable was docked for repairs. Even damaged, it looked dangerous now. "You are not at fault, Commander," Vorn said finally. "You fought according to our training, our experience. The humans did not. That is why you lost." He turned to face Zax. "The question now is, what do we do about them?" On board the Indomitable, the atmosphere was very different. The crew was celebrating. They had done the impossible. They had defeated a superior enemy and earned respect. Captain Lee Tae-ho stood in the observation deck watching the stars. Commander Park Ji-won found him there. "The crew wants to celebrate with you," she said. "Soon," Lee Tae-ho replied. "Right now I am thinking." "About what?" "About what comes next. We won this fight, but now every species in the galaxy knows about us. Some will respect us. Others will fear us. And some will want to test us to see if we are really as dangerous as we appear." Park Ji-won nodded slowly. "You think someone will attack? I know they will. Fear is a powerful motivator. We are an unknown threat now. Someone will want to eliminate us before we become too strong." His words proved correct faster than either of them expected. Intelligence Officer Nam Yoonji burst into the observation deck. She was young, barely 30, but brilliant at her job. "Captain, I have been monitoring alien communication channels. You need to see this." She pulled up her datapad and showed them the intercepted messages. Dozens of governments were discussing Earth. Some wanted to form alliances. Others wanted to restrict human expansion. But one name kept appearing in the most concerning messages: the hegemony of Core. "Who are they?" Lee Tae-ho asked. "A militaristic species from the Outer Rim," Nam Yoonji explained. "They control about 40 star systems through force. Their military is large but not as advanced as the Vacrians. They have been trying to expand toward the core worlds for decades, but the Galactic Council has kept them contained. And now, their warlord Thex sees our victory as an opportunity. If he can destroy the Indomitable, he proves that human strength was just luck. It will make him look powerful and intimidate the other species. But if he ignores us, he looks weak for not responding to a new threat." Park Ji-won looked at the data. "How big is his fleet?" "Our intelligence suggests he has about 30 combat-capable ships in the region. Most are older designs, but they significantly outnumber us." Lee Tae-ho closed his eyes. "How long until they could reach Earth?" "If they left now?" 2 weeks. The captain opened his eyes. "Get me Ambassador Choi and send a message to Earth Command. Tell them to begin evacuation procedures for all orbital stations. This is not a drill. Within hours, the news spread. The core fleet had left their space and was heading toward the Sol system. Warlord Thex had made public statements about testing the human threat and determining if Earth deserved its place in the galaxy. On Orbital Prime, Ambassador Choi tried desperately to get help. He met with representatives from dozens of species, but their responses were all similar. The Vakrians said they could not commit forces without a formal alliance, which would take months to negotiate. The Mixani said they were traitors, not warriors. The others had their own excuses. Only one species offered help without conditions, a peaceful federation that controlled a handful of systems near Earth. But their military was tiny, just a few patrol ships. Choi returned to the Indomitable exhausted and angry. They will watch Earth burn and then divide our territory among themselves, he said bitterly. Lee Tae-ho was in the command center with his senior officers. Engineer Kim Sang-ho had dark circles under his eyes from working nonstop on repairs. Lieutenant Kang Bora was running combat simulations. Dr. Yoon Hae-rin, the chief science officer, was analyzing everything they knew about the core. We need to return to Earth, Lee Tae-ho said. We have less than 2 weeks to prepare a defense. Against 30 ships, Choi said. Captain, even with your brilliant tactics, you cannot win against those odds. No, Lee Tae-ho agreed. We cannot win, but we can make them pay such a high price that they will regret coming. We can buy time for Earth to prepare deeper defenses, and we can show the galaxy that humanity does not surrender. Engineer Kim Sang-ho spoke up. Captain, I have been thinking. The Indomitable took serious damage in the exercise. If I repair everything properly, it will take 4 weeks. But if I reinforce only the critical systems and weapons, if I strip out everything non-essential, if I push every system beyond its design limits, he paused. I can have us combat ready in 10 days. We will be flying a ship held together with hope and engineering tape, but we will be ready. Do it, Lee Tae-ho ordered. Dr. Yoon Hee-rin cleared her throat. Captain, I have been studying the core combat footage that Intelligence Officer Nam provided. They fight in tight formations, relying on overwhelming firepower. They are aggressive, but not particularly creative. However, I noticed something interesting about the area where they will likely engage us. She pulled up a star chart showing the Sol system. The outer system, near Jupiter's orbit, has unusual gravitational patterns. Jupiter's moons create complex interactions. If we could lure them into this region and time it correctly, we might be able to use those gravitational effects against them. Lieutenant Kang Bora looked at the data. It would require perfect timing and incredible precision. One mistake and we would be caught in the same trap. War requires risks, Lee Tae-ho said. Dr. Yoon, work with Commander Park to develop tactical scenarios. Engineer Kim, focus on getting us mobile. Lieutenant Kang, I need you to calculate exactly how much firepower we can bring to bear. Intelligence Officer Nam, I need to know everything about Warlord Thex. How he thinks, how he fights, what makes him angry. The crew moved to their tasks with renewed purpose. They were outnumbered and outgunned. They were facing an enemy that had conquered dozens of worlds, but they were human, and humans had been fighting impossible odds since they first discovered fire. 10 days later, the Indomitable left Orbital Prime. The ship looked worse than before, with temporary patches covering damaged sections and entire systems running on backup power. But its weapons were ready, and its crew was determined. As they departed, a message came from High Chancellor Vorn. Captain Lee Tae-ho, the Vakrian Empire cannot officially assist you. But know that we are watching. If Earth survives this, we will remember. Fight well, human. Show them why we should fear you. The Indomitable turned toward home, racing against time. Behind them, the galaxy watched and waited to see if humanity's victory had been luck, or if Earth truly deserved its place among the stars. Ahead of them, 30 warships were coming to destroy everything humans had built, and standing between them and Earth was one damaged battleship and a crew that refused to give up. The real test was about to begin. The Indomitable arrived at the edge of the Sol system 3 days before the core fleet was expected. Captain Lee Tae-ho stood on the bridge looking at Earth through the main display. It was a small blue marble from this distance, so fragile and beautiful. Behind it, the orbital stations were nearly empty. Millions of people had been evacuated to the surface or moved to bases on the Moon and Mars. Status report, he ordered. Engineer Kim Sang-ho's voice came through tired and strained. "We are holding together, Captain. I have rerouted power from life support in sections that we do not need. The reactor is running hot but stable. Weapons are at maximum capacity. We have 48 hours of combat readiness, maybe less if we push hard." "That will have to be enough," Lee Tae-ho said. Commander Park Ji-won was studying the tactical displays. "Captain, Earth Command has positioned everything they have. 4 patrol boats, 6 defense satellites, and the orbital defense grid. Against 30 core warships, it is nothing." "It is something," Lee Tae-ho corrected. "Every weapon matters. Every second we buy matters." Dr. Yoon Hye-rin approached with her calculations. "Captain, I have refined the plan. If we can lure the core fleet to these coordinates near Jupiter's 4th moon, there is a 37% chance we can create the gravitational disruption we need. But the timing must be perfect. We are talking about seconds of accuracy. 37% is better than 0, Lee Tae-ho said. "What do we need to make it work? Every nuclear warhead we have detonated in precise sequence at exact locations, and we need the core fleet to be in a tight formation at the moment of detonation." Lieutenant Kang Bo-ra looked up from her weapons station. "Captain, that means we would use all our nuclear missiles. We would have nothing left except railguns and conventional missiles." "I know," Lee Tae-ho said. "But if this works, the core will be trapped in the system with disabled faster-than-light drives. They will be stuck here, and reinforcements from the galaxy can arrive to contain them." "And if it does not work?" Commander Park asked. "Then we fight until we cannot fight anymore." The waiting was the hardest part. The crew prepared, ran simulations, and checked every system 100 times. Messages came from Earth, families saying goodbye, government officials making speeches about bravery and sacrifice, scientists sending last-minute data that might help in the battle. Intelligence officer Nam Yoon-ji spent her time monitoring long-range sensors and alien communication channels. 2 days before the core were expected, she called Captain Lee Tae-ho to her station. "Captain, I am picking up increased chatter on Vakrian military channels. And not just them. The Mixani, the Federation species, even some governments I have never heard of. They are all moving ships toward our region." "Why?" Lee Tae-ho asked. I think they are coming to watch. They want to see if we can really stop the core, or if our victory against the Swift Talon was just luck." Park Ji-won joined them. "Or they are coming to claim territory after we are destroyed." "Maybe," Nam Yoon-ji said. "But some of these messages sound different. They sound concerned. I think some of them actually hope we win." Lee Tae-ho looked at the communication data. The galaxy was watching. Every species that had laughed at humanity was now paying attention. This was more than a battle. It was a test that would determine Earth's future. The core fleet arrived exactly when predicted. 30 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. They were brutish vessels, all sharp angles and heavy armor. They moved in a tight formation, advancing slowly and deliberately toward Earth. On the flagship, Warlord Thex sat on his command throne. He was a massive creature, over 8 feet tall, with thick scales and eyes that glowed yellow. His species had conquered their way across the outer rim, and he was proud of that heritage. "Scan the system," he ordered. "Find the human battleship." His sensors officer, a smaller core with nervous movements, studied his displays. "Lord Thex, the human ship is positioned near the large gas giant. It appears to be waiting for us." "One ship," Thex said, his voice full of contempt. "They send one damaged ship to face my entire fleet. The humans are either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." He laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Forward formation. We will destroy them quickly and move on to their homeworld. I want to be in orbit over Earth before the day ends." The core fleet advanced. On the Indomitable, alarms began sounding as the enemy ships entered weapon range. "Captain," Lieutenant Kang Bo-ra reported, "they are in standard attack formation, just as Dr. Yoon predicted. They are moving slowly, maintaining tight coordination." "Good," Lee Tae-ho said. "Begin retreat pattern Echo 3. Make it look desperate." The Indomitable fired its engines and began moving away from the core fleet, heading deeper toward Jupiter's orbit. The human ship fired its railguns, but the shots went wide, missing the core ships by significant margins. Thex watched the human ship flee and smiled. "They are running, pathetic, increase speed. Do not let them escape." His fleet accelerated, tightening their formation to present a unified front. This was exactly how the core always fought. using overwhelming numbers and firepower to crush enemies. Lee Tae-ho watched his display as the core ships followed them deeper into the Jupiter system. Commander Park, how are we on timing? 30 seconds until optimal position. The core are maintaining formation. They are doing exactly what we need them to do. Dr. Yoon, gravitational readings are nominal. If we execute now, we have our 37% chance. Captain, I have to warn you again. When we detonate the nuclear devices, the gravitational shockwave could damage us too. We are going to be very close to the detonation zone. Everyone hold on to something, Lee Tae-ho ordered. Lieutenant Kang, prepare all nuclear missiles. Launch on my mark. The Indomitable continued its apparent retreat, the core fleet following eagerly. Thex was already planning his victory speech. Now, Lee Tae-ho commanded, every missile tube on the Indomitable fired at once. Dozens of nuclear missiles streaked away from the human battleship, not toward the core fleet but around them. They spread out in a precise pattern that Dr. Yoon had calculated over hundreds of simulations. What are they doing? Thex demanded. Those missiles will miss us by kilometers. The missiles reached their designated positions and detonated. Nuclear fire bloomed in the darkness of space, dozens of small suns burning for brief moments. But Dr. Yoon had not been interested in the explosions themselves. She had been interested in what those explosions would do to the space around them. The combined detonations, positioned with mathematical precision near Jupiter's fourth moon, created a cascading effect. Gravitational waves rippled outward, amplified by the moon's own gravity. Space itself seemed to twist and fold. The core fleet, tightly grouped in their attack formation, suddenly found their ships pulled in different directions by gravitational forces that should not exist. Worse, every ship that used faster-than-light drives had sensitive equipment that relied on careful manipulation of space-time. The gravitational chaos destroyed those delicate systems instantly. Alarms screamed on every core vessel. Their faster-than-light drives burned out. Navigation systems failed. 3 ships actually collided with each other as their courses suddenly changed in ways their pilots could not control. The Indomitable had its own problems. The gravitational shockwave hit them hard. Metal groaned. Systems failed. The entire ship shuddered like it had been struck by a giant's fist. But engineer Kim Sang-ho had prepared for this. He had reinforced critical systems and positioned the ship at the edge of the effect zone. They survived, damaged but operational. The core fleet was in chaos. They were trapped in the Sol system with no way to escape. Their formation was broken. Several ships were damaged from collisions or gravitational stress. All ships. Thex roared over the communication system. Reform, prepare to engage the human vessel. But before he could organize his fleet, new contacts appeared on his sensors. Ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel all around the Sol system. Not human ships. Alien ships. The Vakrian Empire had sent 3 cruisers. The Mexani Consortium sent 5 of their trading vessels, now armed for combat. A dozen other species. Governments that had watched the demonstration and now saw an opportunity sent ships. They had not come to help Earth. They had come to ensure the core did not escape. The hegemony of core had been a problem for the galaxy for decades. Now they were trapped, their fleet disabled, and every government that had suffered core aggression saw a chance to contain them. High Chancellor Vorn's voice came over the open communication channel. Warlord Thex, you are ordered to stand down. Your fleet is disabled and surrounded. The Galactic Council will take custody of your vessels and your personnel. You will face judgment for unprovoked aggression against Earth. Thex looked at his displays in disbelief. His mighty fleet, which had conquered worlds, was now helpless. And it had been defeated not by superior technology, but by one human ship using primitive weapons and impossible tactics. On the Indomitable, the crew was silent. They had done it. Earth was safe. Captain Lee Tae-ho finally allowed himself to sit down. His ship was half destroyed. His crew was exhausted, but they had won. Ambassador Choi, he said into the communication system, you can tell Earth that the threat is contained. We will need repairs and probably 5 years had passed since the Battle of Sol, as the historians now called it. The galaxy had changed in those 5 years, and so had humanity. Captain Lee Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking out at a sight that would have been impossible to imagine half a decade ago. His ship, rebuilt and upgraded, now served as the flagship of Earth's first defense fleet. Around him floated 4 other human battleships. each one incorporating lessons learned from that desperate battle near Jupiter. But the Indomitable remained special. The crew had insisted on keeping the original hull, complete with its scars from the battles against the Swift Talon and the core fleet. Some of the armor plates had been replaced, but many of the original sections remained. The ship was both old and new, a symbol of where humanity had been and where it was going. "Captain," Commander Park Ji-won said. She was his second in command now, promoted after their victory. "We are receiving a communication from Orbital Prime. The ceremony is ready to begin." Lee Tae-ho nodded. Today was a significant day. Earth was being formally inducted as a full member of the Galactic Council, not as a junior partner or protected species, but as an equal. It had taken 5 years of negotiations, demonstrations of capability, and careful diplomacy. But Ambassador Choi had never given up, and neither had Earth. The Indomitable and its escort fleet made the journey to Orbital Prime. As they approached, Lee Tae-ho saw something that still amazed him. The docking bays were full of ships from dozens of species. Some had come to witness the ceremony. Others had come to meet with human diplomats about trade agreements, technology exchanges, or military alliances. The station that had once echoed with laughter at humanity's expense now welcomed Earth with respect. In the main council chamber, the atmosphere was very different from that first meeting 5 years ago. Ambassador Choi stood at the center, older now and grayer, but with a confidence he had not possessed before. Next to him stood representatives from Earth's various governments and military branches. High Chancellor Vorn rose to speak. 5 years ago, Earth came to this council as supplicants asking for a place among us. We judged them by their technology and found them primitive. We judged them by their weapons and found them crude. We were wrong. He looked directly at the human delegation. Earth has shown us that advancement is not only measured in the sophistication of one's tools, but in the creativity of one's mind and the strength of one's spirit. They defeated a Vakrian vessel not through superior weapons, but through superior tactics. They defended their world against overwhelming odds not through greater numbers, but through courage and ingenuity. Vorn paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried through the chamber. The Galactic Council formally recognizes Earth as a full member, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. Welcome, humanity. You have earned your place among the stars. The chamber erupted in sounds of approval. Not all species were happy about Earth's rise, but none could deny that humans had proven themselves. Some of the same delegates who had laughed 5 years ago now stood to applaud. After the ceremony, Lee Tae-ho attended a private reception. He found himself talking with Commander Zax, the Vakrian officer, who had surrendered to him in that first demonstration. "Captain Lee," Zax said, offering the Vakrian gesture of respect. "I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" Lee Tae-ho was surprised. "For defeating you?" "For teaching me," Zax replied. "After our battle, I was ashamed. I thought my career was over. But High Chancellor Vorn did not punish me. Instead, he promoted me and assigned me to study human military tactics. For the past 5 years, I have been working with your military academy on Earth, learning how humans think about warfare." Zax smiled, an expression that looked strange on his blue face. "The Vakrian military has not had a new idea in 1,000 years. We had become rigid, predictable. You showed us that there are other ways to fight, other ways to think. Our younger officers now study Earth's military history alongside our own. You have made us stronger." Lee Tae-ho considered this. "I am glad something good came from our battle. I did not want to make enemies that day. I just wanted to prove we deserved respect." "You proved more than that," Zax said. "You proved that the galaxy needs Earth. We had become complacent, comfortable with our superiority. You reminded us that the universe is still full of surprises." As the reception continued, Lee Tae-ho was approached by many other species. The Mexani wanted to discuss joint mining operations in asteroid belts. A peaceful species called the Toral wanted Earth's help training their defense forces. Even some representatives from the former core hegemony, now reformed under Galactic Council oversight, came to make peace. But the most interesting conversation came from a species Lee Tae-ho had never met before. They called themselves the Vex, and they came from the far side of the galaxy. Their representative was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shift colors. "Captain Lee Tae-ho," the Vex said in perfect English, "my people have been watching Earth with great interest. You have done something remarkable. "What is that?" Lee Tae-ho asked. "You have reminded the galaxy what it means to be new. Every species in this chamber has existed in space for thousands of years. We have forgotten what it is like to see the stars for the first time, to feel small and vulnerable. That fear, that hunger to prove ourselves drives innovation. It drives change. Humanity still has that hunger." The Vex leaned closer. "In the coming years, the galaxy will face new challenges. There are threats from beyond our borders, problems we cannot solve with old thinking. Humanity's perspective, your willingness to break rules and try impossible things may be exactly what we need." Lee Tae-ho did not know what to say to that. He had spent 5 years worrying about whether Earth would be accepted, whether humanity could survive among these ancient civilizations. He had not considered that maybe the galaxy needed Earth as much as Earth needed the galaxy. Later, back on the Indomitable, Lee Tae-ho gathered his original crew. Lieutenant Kang Bo-ra was now Captain Kang, commanding her own battleship. Engineer Kim Sang-ho ran Earth's Spacecraft Design Bureau, but had taken time to attend the ceremony. Dr. Yoon Hye-rin led a joint human-alien research station studying gravitational phenomena. Intelligence Officer Nam Yoon-ji coordinated intelligence sharing between Earth and a dozen other species. They sat together in the observation deck, looking at the stars. "Do you remember what it was like 5 years ago?" Park Ji-won asked. "When we were just hoping to survive?" "I remember being terrified," Kang Bo-ra admitted. "I was certain we were going to die fighting the core fleet." Kim Sang-ho laughed. "I spent that whole battle praying that the reactor would not explode. The things I did to that poor machine should have gotten me arrested. But it worked," Dr. Yoon said. "Everything worked. Against all probability, we survived and won." Lee Tae-ho looked at his old crew, these people who had trusted him when trust seemed foolish. "We won because we did not give up. The aliens thought our primitive weapons made us weak, but those weapons were all we had. So we learned to use them better than anyone thought possible. We turned our weaknesses into strengths, and now," Nam Yoon-ji asked. "Now we build," Lee Tae-ho said. "Earth has 5 battleships with 10 more under construction. We have trade agreements, defense pacts, and research partnerships. In 10 years, humanity will have a presence in 100 star systems. In 50 years, we will be one of the major powers in the galaxy. That is a big change from being mocked as primitive," Park Ji-won said. Lee Tae-ho smiled. "We are still primitive by galactic standards. Our newest ships use technology that is generations behind the Vakrians or the Mixani, but we have something they do not. We remember what it is like to be the underdog. We remember what it is like to face impossible odds, and we never, ever give up." He raised his glass. "To the Indomitable, the ship that refused to be destroyed. To Earth, the planet that refused to surrender. And to humanity, the species that was mocked as primitive, feared as a weapon, and finally accepted as equals." The crew raised their glasses and drank to the toast. Later, alone on the bridge, Lee Tae-ho looked at the stars and thought about the future. There would be new challenges, new battles, new enemies. The Vex had spoken of threats from beyond known space. Other species would test humanity, trying to find weaknesses to exploit. But Lee Tae-ho was not worried. Humanity had survived ice ages and plagues, world wars, and near-extinction events. They had climbed from caves to reach the stars in just a few thousand years. Now they were part of a galactic community, and they would face whatever came next with the same determination that had brought them this far. The Indomitable hung in space, scarred and proud. Its original armor plates, marked with burns from energy weapons and impacts from debris, told the story of humanity's arrival on the galactic stage. It was not the biggest ship or the fastest or the most advanced, but it was humanity's ship, and that meant it would never surrender, never stop fighting, never give up. The galaxy had learned that lesson the hard way. Earth was not primitive. Earth was not weak. Earth was human, and that made all the difference. In the observation deck, a young crew member who had not been present for the original battles looked at the scarred hull and asked Commander Park Ji-won, "Why do we keep those old damaged sections?"